and this was a serious matter. A certain circumstance had crept in, a disagreeable and troublesome factor, which threatened to overturn the whole business. This circumstance had come into existence 18 years before. Close to an estate of Totski's, in one of the central provinces of Russia, there lived at that time a poor gentleman whose estate was of the wretchedest description. This gentleman was noted in the district for his persistent ill fortune. His name was Barashkov, and as regards family and descent he was vastly superior to Totski, but his estate was mortgaged to the last acre. One day, when he had ridden over to the town to see a creditor, the chief peasant of his village followed him shortly after, with the news that his house had been burnt down, and that his wife had perished with it, but his children were safe. Even Barashkov, inured to the storms of evil fortune as he was, could not stand this last stroke. He went mad, and died shortly after in the town hospital. His estate was sold for the creditors, and the little girls, two of them, of 7 and 8 years of age respectively, were adopted by Totski, who undertook their maintenance and education in the kindness of his heart. They were brought up together with the children of his German bailiff. Very soon, however, there was only one of them left, Nastasia Philipovna, for the other little one died of whooping cough. Totski, who was living abroad at this time, very soon forgot all about the child, but 5 years after, returning to Russia, it struck him that he would like to look over his estate and see how matters were going there, and arrived at his bailiff's house, he was not long in discovering that among the children of the latter there now dwelt a most lovely little girl of 12, sweet and intelligent and bright, and promising to develop beauty of most unusual quality, as to which last Totski was an undoubted authority. He only stayed at his country seat a few days on this occasion, but he had time to make his arrangements. Great changes took place in the child's education. A good governess was engaged, a Swiss lady of experience and culture. For 4 years this lady resided in the house with little Nastya, and then the education was considered complete. The governess took her departure, and another lady came down to fetch Nastya, by Totski's instructions. The child was now transported to another of Totski's estates in a distant part of the country. Here she found a delightful little house, just built, and prepared for her reception with great care and taste. And here she took up her abode, together with the lady who had accompanied her from her old home. In the house there were 2 experienced maids, musical instruments of all sorts, a charming young ladies' library, pictures, paint boxes, a lap-dog, and everything to make life agreeable. Within a fortnight Totski himself arrived, and from that time he appeared to have taken a great fancy to this part of the world, and came down each summer, staying 2 and 3 months at a time. So passed 4 years, peacefully and happily, in charming surroundings. At the end of that time, and about 4 months after Totski's last visit, he had stayed but a fortnight on this occasion, a report reached Nastasia Philipovna that he was about to be married in St. Petersburg to a rich, eminent and lovely woman. The report was only partially true, the marriage project being only in an embryo condition, but a great change now came over Nastasia Philipovna. She suddenly displayed unusual decision of character, and without wasting time in thought, she left her country home and came up to St. Petersburg, straight to Totski's house, all alone. The latter, amazed at her conduct, began to express his displeasure, But he very soon became aware that he must change his voice, style, and everything else with this young lady. The good old times were gone. An entirely new and different woman sat before him, between whom and the girl he had left in the country last July there seemed nothing in common. In the first place, this new woman understood a good deal more than was usual for young people of her age; so much, indeed, that Totski could not help wondering where she had picked up her knowledge. Surely not from her young lady's library. It even embraced legal matters and the world in general, to a considerable extent. Her character was absolutely changed. No more of the girlish alternations of timidity and petulance, the adorable naivete, the reveries, the tears, the playfulness. It was an entirely new and hitherto unknown being who now sat and laughed at him, and informed him to his face that she had never had the faintest feeling for him of any kind, except loathing and contempt which had followed closely upon her sensations of surprise and bewilderment after her first acquaintance with him. This new woman gave him further to understand that though it was absolutely the same to her whom he married, yet she had decided to prevent this marriage, for no particular reason, but that she chose to do so, and because she wished to amuse herself at his expense, for that it was quite her turn to laugh a little now. Such were her words. Very likely she did not give her real reason for this eccentric conduct, but at all events that was all the explanation she deigned to offer. Meanwhile Totski thought the matter over as well as his scattered ideas would permit. His meditations lasted a fortnight, however, and at the end of that time his resolution was taken. The fact was, Totski was at that time a man of 50 years of age. His position was solid and respectable. His place in society had long been firmly fixed upon safe foundations. He loved himself, his personal comforts, and his position better than all the world, as every respectable gentleman should. At the same time, his grasp of things in general soon showed Totski that he now had to deal with a being who was outside the pale of the ordinary rules of traditional behaviour, and who would not only threaten mischief, but would undoubtedly carry it out, and stop for no one. There was evidently, he concluded, something at work here, some storm of the mind, some paroxysm of romantic anger, goodness knows against whom or what, some insatiable contempt. In a word, something altogether absurd and impossible, but at the same time most dangerous to be met with by any respectable person with a position in society to keep up. For a man of Totski's wealth and standing, it would of course have been the simplest possible matter to take steps which would rid him at once from all annoyance, while it was obviously impossible for Nastasia Philipovna to harm him in any way, either legally or by stirring up a scandal, for in the case of the latter danger, he could so easily remove her to a sphere of safety. However, these arguments would only hold good in case of Nastasia acting as others might in such an emergency. She was much more likely to overstep the bounds of reasonable conduct by some extraordinary eccentricity. Here the sound judgment of Totski stood him in good stead. He realized that Nastasia Philipovna must be well aware that she could do nothing by legal means to injure him, and that her flashing eyes betrayed some entirely different intention. Nastasia Philipovna was quite capable of ruining herself, and even of perpetrating something which would send her to Siberia, for the mere pleasure of injuring a man for whom she had developed so inhuman a sense of loathing and contempt. He had sufficient insight to understand that she valued